I've got two guests again, and I'd like to tell you who they are. Sitting down at the table with me, Kaspar Korjus is Managing Director of e-Residency for Estonia, which is the first transnational digital identity platform in the world. Now, don't worry, in a moment I'll be asking exactly what that means. And he's listed on Forbes Estonia's 30 under 30 list as #1 in technology and finance, and he's the founding curator of the World Economic Forum Global Shapers community in Estonia, and a board member of multiple blockchain and fintech-related companies. Taavet Hinrikus. Boy, I'm gonna say that again. I'm gonna get it right. You can't see him, but he's smirking at me because I don't blame him. Taavet Hinrikus. That's pretty close, right? Yeah, it's close enough. Co-founder of TransferWise, there I said that correctly, an international money transfer platform and a World Economic Forum technology provider. Prior to starting TransferWise, he was Skype's director of strategy until 2008. He was actually the first employee at that company. He also helps the startup community as an advisor and angel investor, and his investments include TweetDeck, Mendeley, OMG, Pop, BetaWorks, and Farmeron. Fellows, Taavet, Kaspar, thanks for joining me here.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thanks for inviting.
It's great to see you both. I'm going to dive right in with a question for both of you, if I may, which is, you both come from the Estonian tech scene. We've got a big Estonian contingent here. What are the strengths of the Estonian tech scene? Why is it punching so much above its weight?
It's a good question. What I would say from government side is definitely that we managed to work together with startups. If something needs to be changed, for example, if Uber entered Estonia, then we didn't start to fight against that. We gathered all the stakeholders, discussed what laws we need to change, how to change that, and we made that happen. The same with e-residency, online bank accounts, for example. Change needs to be made happen. We gather startups, we gather politics, we gather everyone, and we find the solution, even if it's a very difficult one. And I think this conversation between public and private sector is definitely one of the success there.
I think for every ecosystem, it's important to have early success stories. So I was part of the team that built Skype, and we launched Skype in 2003, and Skype very quickly became this massive global success story. And it had a huge boost for Estonia, because the result of Skype was that there's more than 1,000 people who either worked for Skype or are still working for it. There was capital which came to Estonia. And maybe most importantly, it legitimized this whole startup thing. When before Skype, when you graduate from university and you go work for startups, and your mom would ask you, say, hey, son, what happened? Did no bank hire you? Did the telco not hire you? But yet after Skype, it became completely legitimate that startups is a way of changing the world. It also financially can work out. You may have a job 1, 2, 3 years later. And I think now if you look at it, the Skype success had a huge acceleration on the ecosystem. If you look at it now, TransferWise, Pipedrive, Starship, a lot of the most kind of well-developed, fastest-growing startups in Estonia are Skype-related.
Now, I kind of feel like, of course, a great bit of advice is have a huge success like Skype first. But how do you make that so? If I'm talking to a company that doesn't have a big startup community, are you saying make sure you pick a winner first? Like, what do you do? How do you set up the environment to find that winner?
I think fundamentally it kind of goes back to people. It goes back to people with the right attitude, people with the right skills. So Estonia had a good STEM education system. So we had lots of people who studied this back in the day. So I think that helped. And having an open mind, and overall Estonia starting 25 years ago with a kind of blank sheet of paper was really helpful.
I think a very small thing what startup community can do is start supporting each other inside the community. In Estonia, it's #EstonianMafia, very well known, which means that if one startup struggles with something, then others come and help. If there is one investor who wants to meet other startups, then we gather all the startups and we find solutions there. And this helping and supporting each other in a very early stage really helps also the startups to get more mature there.
And sorry, that was #EstonianMafia?
Yes.
Because I feel like #Russian Mafia has a totally different
It's a bit different.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. Let me ask you this. You mentioned the e-residency program early. What have been the effects and the results of that program?
It's crazy, actually. Like last year when I was here at Nordic Business Forum, we had 150 new e-residents per week. This year we have 600 e-residents per week. So the growth is massive internationally, especially from countries from emerging markets like India, Turkey, Ukraine, where businesses can't do global business. Like entrepreneurs can't run their companies globally because they don't have access to banking, to business environment, and through e-residency, they can establish company, run that remotely, access business banking, and everything is packaged.
So, Kaspar, I think I have to back up a second, and you folks might know this better than I do. What exactly are the benefits of e-residency?
Yes.
How residency is e-residency? Is
So
it
let's
more
say,
e or more resident?
let's say I'm an entrepreneur from Ukraine. If I want to sell these bottles, then I can sell them only inside Ukraine. I can't accept foreign currencies. Now with e-residency, I get this digital identity. And using that, I will establish EU company, getting access to the whole EU business market. I'm getting access to financial services, like bank account. I can do a bank account. I get access to PayPal, for example. I can accept foreign currencies, and I can remotely manage that company. So I can travel all around the world and digitally sign and administer my company. So e-residency gives full location independence to every person on planet, and especially for those people who don't have any rights or any possibility to run global business today.
And I mean, do they pay e-tax?
They are paying taxes mostly in their own countries, and that's really empowering their own countries. Ukrainian entrepreneur can now hire new people in their own countries, and it grows their own economies in that sense. We are just offering our platform as Estonia. The digital society is so mature, we can just offer that platform, and you can build your services and business on top of that.
I think of it as an equivalent of Amazon Web Services for government. It's government in a cloud. You can it's a way to export Estonian online infrastructure for anyone in the world.
Huh. So I got to say, it sounds a bit like a pop-up restaurant where all the other restaurants in the city have, health inspections and permits and stuff, and then the pop-ups kind of pop up and do business.
It's a new way of life. It's a new way of life because we estimate that there will be 1 billion digital nomads, location-independent people in next 10 years' time. And someone needs to serve them. Someone needs to offer a platform for those people who don't want to be detached to one country only. And as Estonia is fully digital, this is our opportunity to offer that platform.
Well, as long as we're talking about the residency that goes past borders, what about cash? I know you're very interested in a cashless society. What are the 3 most important steps toward getting there?
So I think fundamentally the reason why people still use cash, I think, is mostly to do with convenience.
Hashtag Russian mafia.
Sometimes it's just easier if you're in somewhere where you can pay with cash. I think as soon as digital payments get to the same level of convenience, I think we're going to be there. And I think the 2 things to think about. I think one example of how payments become seamless is I think what we see with Uber and Taxify. So you go in a taxi, you get out. You never think about payment. Whenever I end up in a regular cab, I tend to walk out nowadays, and the cab driver runs after me yelling. So I'm like, oh shit, I forgot that I have to pay you actually. I think that's kind of one example. As soon as we see this everywhere, that's kind of the beginning of the end of cash. And I think the other one, which I think has huge potential, is contactless payments. If you think about the ease of paying with a contactless card, then really, why carry a stash of cash? You can just carry a card.
I actually never realized how much I didn't like using cash, but the first time you're in an Uber and you don't have to touch your wallet, it's oddly freeing. What are you both? What are your goals, short term and long term, for moving these things forward?
For us as a government, longer term vision is that we are transforming Estonia a global nation. So that not only business environment, but all the other services can be offered globally also, from healthcare to payments and everything else, so that our nation becomes a borderless nation. First thing is the business environment. That's why the very short-term goals are that in the next couple of years, our goal is to have 20,000 companies established by e-residents. That's every 3rd company in Estonia. And this business environment, location-independent business environment, is the one what we offer today.
I'm actually quite surprised what Estonia is working on with e-residency and what we work on with TransferWise are kind of very similar. And TransferWise is a new kind of financial services company which is meant for people who are living a borderless life. So we help individuals and businesses who have a cross-border life. We help them manage their money. So we've been doing it for 7 years, and really it feels that we're still at the very beginning. While we built a company of 800 people, which is now profitable and still doubling every year, it's the very beginning and tip of the iceberg. We're looking at how do we go from having 10% market share in UK. Inevitably we're going to be at 20% in UK pretty soon, and then there is the next 37 countries we're live in where we want to achieve the same thing. So I see that it's still the very beginning of days for TransferWise, and there's so much more we can do to help people around the world to avoid being taken for a ride by their banks.
Well, with that in mind, I mean, these disruptive platforms that are making this stuff more possible, what should I be investing in?
I think maybe a good thesis would be, if you believe in this borderless world, look at the companies who make use of e-residency. Take that as an investment basket. That could be a fun one.
I feel like you guys are in cahoots on that answer. Let me ask you this. The whole point of the forum is everybody learns from each other. Different countries learn from each other. What can other Nordics and international companies learn from your example?
Tough one. Like, every country is different, and their journey to become a digital nation can't be copied. We can benchmark what works and what doesn't work. So what you can learn is come and visit us at Estonia. We have booth here, whoever is in this forum, and ask, what are the best services you are using? What should be transformed to digital-based in the first places? And let's have that mutual discussion.
I think government as an early adopter has been also a really important part of the Estonian journey. So today, most people in Estonia declare their taxes digitally. And for most people who are living a simple and clean life, there's really nothing to do. You can be in the bus stop. You will do it on your mobile in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So I think seeing how the government has made everything digital is really a pretty major thing, and it makes a consumer, the citizen, everyday life just so much easier. So I think that's something which is worth learning for everyone. And the other one, which I think is really good, that we've been very lucky that. The people who are running Estonia, the president, prime minister, the previous one, Taavet and Toomas Hendrik Ilves, they were huge advocates for Estonia. They were going around the world and promoting Estonian e-services everywhere. So having that kind of spokespeople on the very highest level of the country, hugely powerful. And then, obviously, so we're also in touch with the startup ecosystem and making sure that the environment is really positive for them.
Well, one last quick question then. We're breaking down cash. We're breaking down transportation. We're breaking down residency. What's the next thing that we're used to in its unbroken down form that you see being broken down by some sort of digital disruptor?
Yes, what from government side we see is the business model. Like today, the business model is taxation mainly, how governments get their income. But imagine the world when we have hundreds of millions of digital citizens. Why do we need vast taxation in the first place is question. We can have monthly subscription, for example. The nation state as such, as in that sense, existed so short period of time, and the whole concept of this, including business model, is now going to be transformed also.
So I mean, paying a subscription to be a citizen of Estonia, that sounds pretty cool. But
sounds all right.
But I think at the same time as we do that, I think it'll be exciting to see what happens in health and education. I think these are kind of two sectors which are still, waiting to be disrupted. For various different reasons, it hasn't happened yet. There's a lot happening in health, and we are conquering cancer, for example, but much more which will be available through kind of more predictive and preventive healthcare. And then education. If you think about how quickly the world is changing, I think the education system is the most stale of anything. And it just doesn't make sense that if the world around changes so quickly, that the education system is the same as it's been for a very long time.
All right, we're going to have you back at the table in a year because I want to hear how the education pays off, because I'm with you. But I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Gentlemen, Taavet and Kaspar, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
No worries.